Hello and welcome to the Emily Rassam Show. I am your host, Emily, and today I am joined by Deb Aspelin, and she is an over-the-top grandparent, and she's going to tell us about how she became an over-the-top grandparent and her journey before she became a grandparent. Thanks for joining us, Deb.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited that you had me. I am an over the top grandparent. And part of that is that's just how I do everything in life. And I've waited 62 years to be a grandma. And I love that role. And the funny thing is I'm going from 0 grandchildren to 4 in 8 months. So out of 3 of my kids, they're all having kids within just bam, bam, bam. So it's been very, very fun.
I love that. And so when you became a parent, how was that? And how many kids do you have?
So I have 4 kids. They were all less than 4 years. They were all born. Our oldest is 33. Our middle is 31. They all just had birthdays. So this is very confusing. And my younger 2 are 29. And we happened to be done when we had 2 kids. That was, we were finished. And we didn't finish. And then we were surprised with another pregnancy, and then we were surprised with twins. So we had 4 babies in 4 years, and that started off the over the top parenting. And 31 years later, that's leading into the over the top grandma.
I love that. I also have 4 kids. How did you do it? How did you do it?
You know
Everyone
what?
asks.
It is crazy. You show yourself a lot of grace. You pray a lot. You surround yourself with encouraging people that are doing it well. And then, I often think my parents had a lot of struggles themselves, but when I married my husband, he had the mother that everyone should get for a mother-in-law. And she taught me how to be a mom. That has carried into I did daycare in my home for 30 years. I'm actually 2 weeks away from being done with that so that I can be a grandma full time. And so it's it's such a blur when you're going through it. It honestly is. I remember we were doing a Bible study, Growing Kids God's Way, when our kids were all really little. And you're in there with a bunch of families, and their concept is couch time, where you as a couple sit on the couch and the children have to realize that it's your time and you're keeping your relationship. I remember sitting there thinking, I can't even get them all fed, bathed, and in bed all up. That's like a good day. How am I going to work in couch time? I mean, you just do it.
Yes, amen to that. That is what you do. Everyone asks, and I say the same thing. You just keep going.
People used to say to me, especially after we had twins. So you have to figure, if I was in a store, I have 2 car seats, infant seats, and a 2-year-old and a not quite 4-year-old. And people would say, I couldn't do that. What are you going to do? You can't. You have to. It's just the way life is. You just adjust and you do it.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
coming up with all kinds of sayings for that when they're like, you have your hands full. And I'm like, yes, I'm so blessed.
Yes.
Or things like
Yes.
that. I'm just, because people say stuff a lot.
I don't know if they don't think, or I'm not sure why people say. I will often, when I see people, out and about now with a lot of young children, and I will say different things to them like, I've been there and you're doing great and it does get better until they
Right.
hit their teen years. Like, that's the hard part. You haven't even hit the hard part yet.
So it's kind of like a wonky curve there. It's not a straight bell curve or anything. My sister has teens, so I hear about that.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what makes you an over the top grandparent?
Mm,
Because I know that's your tagline.
it is. I have a lot of things that make me that. But like, my daughter lives an hour and a half from me, and she lives 45 miles from any shopping. And she has 2 5-month-old twins. So for 5 months, every week on Saturday, it's our day. And I pick up Sam's Club and I pick up Walmart pickup. And then I drive to the town an hour and a half away to deliver her groceries, love on the babies, give her time to take a shower. Recently, she is a teacher, so she had a not as long off as what she was hoping she would have, but she had a little time off. And 2 weeks after going back to work, she got influenza, and both babies got influenza they were, what, 3.5 months old. So I
No.
brought one of them home with me, one of the babies with influenza, and so that she could just have one to take care of. I just really fill in the gaps. And I don't know whether that's over the top. What I've discovered with grandparenting is there are people that they did it, they're done, they're not going to help do anymore. And there are people that loved raising their children, and they're probably going to be an involved grandparent. And
Right.
I see that trend in people. And I think one of the hardest things with what I do online is the young moms that say, I wish I had you for my kids as grandparent. And that breaks my heart because I was very overwhelmed as a parent, like when they were all little. And my mom was, although she had a lot of struggles in her life, that was her healthiest time. And she was my lifesaver. So I just be that to my kids. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to be any other way, if
Right, right, right.
honestly. I mean, I have purple hair. That
I
tells you
like
that
it.
I'm a little bit over the top.
My daughter would love that. I have to put like, do the clip-in sparkle
Uh-huh.
purple stuff for her. She's like, "Can you dye my hair?" And I'm like, "No, you're 4.
Fun.
Let's put fairy hair."
My little granddaughter that was recently born, the 5-month-old twin girl, she has coal black hair and a ton of it. And all of my friends are like, "You've just gotta figure out how to get some purple in her hair." But she's too little yet.
You could put a little hair clip with
We
fake
c
purple hair. I see the
Yeah,
little girls with those sometimes.
I know. Yeah,
Fun.
it'll happen.
Or purple scrunchie.
Yeah.
There you
Even a
go.
purple bow works right now. So, yeah.
I feel that. Yeah, my daughter loves purple, so she wants everything everywhere purple.
Purple, purple. That's fun.
And so, what are some ways that you have learned to let go as a grandparent? Because I remember hearing you say you can't fix everything for your children anymore. Has that been a rough transition?
That is
And
truly that is the hardest part. It honestly is. To tell a little bit of my history, when I was pregnant with my twins, their delivery and my recovery were horrible, and I nearly died, and so did my son for several weeks. It was really bad, and a lot of that was caused by doctor neglect, and I ended up with septic blood and infections inside of me, and the doctors weren't sure I was going to live. And so I think the hardest thing I've ever heard in my life is when my daughter told me she was pregnant with twins, because that brought all of that back.
right,
And also throughout raising my kids, I didn't talk to my kids about that time a lot because, one, I didn't want my twins to think, because I still have a lot of health issues from that time in my life, and
right.
I didn't want them to feel it was because I had them. So we did later on in their lives, we talked a little bit about it, and it was so hard for them to know what I had gone through. But hearing my daughter was pregnant with twins, that was probably the hardest thing as them being an adult I've ever heard. She breezed through it. She had great pregnancy, and her delivery changed because of what happened to me. Like one of my babies weren't supposed to come natural, but my daughter was born breech, and then my son was stuck, and they had to do an emergency C-section, and it was very scary. And so my daughter was faced with, her son was top and not dropping. The daughter could be born natural. And when they talked to my daughter about it, because of what had happened to me 30 years ago, she was like, "No, we're doing both cesarean sections." So she didn't go through delivering one natural and then the scary thing. So I think, how do I do it? With a lot of prayer. That's how I do it. Like I talk to God about all of that stuff because I'm kind of a control freak, and you can't control your adult children anymore. That was easier when they were little and I could influence and you could, maneuver things, but when you get adult children and they get married and it's no longer about what you want and So I think I've had a few years to work into it a little bit before the grandparenting started because, they were married and then that you're giving that up. It starts with college when they go off to college. I think, for me too, it's also I have a great relationship with my kids and their spouses, and it really actually probably starts there. Being the over the top grandparent, being letting go, all of that started at that point because whatever is going to be the best for them, that's what I started doing the day they were born, and it's not going to ever change. So
I like
they
that.
yeah, I've just stepped into a different role from being, when my first babies were born, I owned a beauty salon. I had a great thriving business. And after my second was born, I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to be out of my home. And so that's when I started daycare 30 years ago. Well, I have 2 weeks left. Now I'm leaving that because I want to be able to be with my grandkids. And so my life just kind of revolves around it doesn't revolve around my kids. Like I'm not doing it. I'm doing it because I want to spend time with them. And so yeah, I'm changing careers again
That's
because,
beautiful.
yeah, I just, yeah,
That's, I think, one of the biggest lessons you learn when you become a parent is letting go because you're just really not in control of almost anything except for yourself. Maybe you can help with your own emotions sometimes. Well,
right.
even those, they're not always in your control. It's funny. I was just talking to a friend about this today about how when you get married, it's different. Your family dynamics change. And what were some ways that you did that with your kids? Just easing into the family dynamics change? Because I know it's usually a really tumultuous time, and it's not just in perfect families, like, it happens in all families. Because it takes some getting used to.
It does. And you're what, I have three um in-law children. So I have a son-in-law and I have two daughter-in-laws. And they all come from such different backgrounds. My son-in-law is actually from South Africa and um, his mom died when he was really young, like 14, and he has some hard things from that. And then, so I'm lucky enough that I can be a parent to him, and then I have the two daughter-in-laws that are very different, but both came from really small, quiet homes, families with the one is an only child and one is a sibling with two. And our family is loud and wild and over the top all over.
Right.
And I mean, they're too much for me. And I have, after at a big family gathering or days together, I need to step away. And they do too. That's overwhelming for those two girls. I just have great I think when your heart is in the right place dealing with your in-laws or your own adult children, they feel that. And even though I may not do it always the best way that they want, it would be funner if my son-in-law was on here because he's probably the one that is a little bit different now, but he knows my heart is always in the right spot. So he shows me grace and I show him grace. And I think communication between your children, whether they're your adult children or your in-law children, that's very important. And that when they trust you, they're going to trust you with their children. When they aren't, when you're I think that every grandparent's home should be a little bit less rules than real home,
Yeah, of
and they
course.
should get an extra treat or whatever. I'm not the grandmother that's gonna feed them cake for breakfast and nothing else. Like, they might get a little slice of cake after they eat something with a protein and a fruit, So, honestly, it's just compromise, and I've done daycare for 30 years, so now that we're at these baby and soon, it'll be toddlers, I just have a ton of wisdom. Like, I've done it for so long and with so many children that my kids and my in-law kids, they just come to me for advice. And But I think you have to be respectful in that too, If I give them advice and they don't follow that, I don't judge them for that. I might a little, like, you should really listen, but I think that's why it works is because it's done in the correct way.
I love that. Do you think that it's like your faith that helps you being better at communicating hard topics?
I think it's my
Or
faith. Yeah.
or
I
what
think it's my
else?
faith. I think it's just being older, being 62, like, I've done a lot of things. I've seen a lot of parenting, and when I think about it, I have said in my 30 years of doing childcare in my home, the parents have been my ministry, and so I really, it might look like I've just picked up this grandparent role really easily, but I've done that and, nurtured parents and helped them through struggles. And for 30 years, that's been my role. Taking care of children isn't part of doing daycare. It's really actually the, the parents and, helping them. In the first 15 years of that, I was state licensed. And so that put me with a lot of single parenting, a lot of low income parenting. And I was very blessed by a large ministry in helping people be the best parent. The thing about parents that struggle, they aren't struggle, they all love their kids. And it's often just that they don't they in a good home or in with teaching that they wanna duplicate, and when you don't know how to do it, you find people that are doing it well, and I found that within my church, and I had the mother-in-law that was amazing, and she helped me so much to learn, and maybe that's where I'm a better in-law because I had in-laws that were such a blessing to us. They never pushed too much, but they were always there when we needed them. And it's been my goal my entire life to be a good parent and a good grandparent, and I work hard at doing that.
I think that's an
So,
admirable goal. I really like that. And
yeah.
I think that's part of the reason I started my podcast was because I noticed that communicating with parents of younger kids or parents in general, there's a big need for that.
Mhm.
And we don't always have time to go to, like, some group at church or et cetera, so I'm like, little snippets like you do are so important for those who need encouragement because we all need encouragement from
Yes.
time to time, and, um and that makes me think about respect as a grandparent because in addition to, lack of assistance with grandparents, which I find a lot of people my age don't have any grandparents around to help.
Right.
What about respect with the grandparents? Like having respect in both ways because, as the parent, I don't want to take advantage of the
Right.
grandparent
Right.
because they're retired and they want to have fun too. But then also, how can the grandparent be respectful to their kids? So there's a dichotomy there in the relationship where you have to be careful on both sides. What is your experience with
It's
those?
It's communication. A lot of it is communication. With my 5-month-old grandbabies, I love taking one at a time and giving them the one-on-one time, and I get one-on-one time. It's overwhelming when they're both here because they don't sleep at night as well as they're 5 months old.
Yes.
But I do it at times. I want to take them because I want my daughter and my son-in-law to rejuvenate, get sleep, do all the things. But I think it comes a lot from communication. I feel like if we lived in the same town, I would probably have to have some boundaries of, like I do want to be there all the time and I do, but I have a great life too. I'm an empty nester. Me and my husband, we have a lot of stuff, fun stuff that we're doing. Fortunately, my kids know that mom's going to tell us yes or no, and that's the way it's going to be. I think that comes from I don't do things that I don't want to do. I mean, within reason, and I think that they know that. So when I tell them, nope, I can't do that. We're doing this or we're doing that. There's never a, never. They're like, "Okay, that's good. We just wanna check with you first." But I always want them to check with me first because normally I do want them or I want to come and help or, I think that it's gonna change some as the kids get a little bit older. That's gonna definitely change, but that's how parenting is too. It changes, and you still have that over the top parenting or the parent that's just always there or,
Right.
you know, I never missed anything for my kids. I changed careers to be able to be the mom I wanted to be. And so I I think it's communication a lot and it's respect. I think also my kids know they don't want to push mom because she does a lot for them and they don't expect a lot of what I do. She lives far away from any shopping, about 45 minutes. So I take her like weekly grocery pickups, and one weekend, I wasn't feeling very well, and the babies were just a few weeks old. And so I actually picked up their groceries and drove the hour and a half there, put the groceries outside the door, and then I left and drove my hour and a half home. But I knew that it was going to be really hard for my daughter to get those babies all ready to go in the car and her to drive an hour and drive home an hour. So it's just, you just do it. It's just like
Right.
parenting. You just do what you have to do. But it's been shocking to me that I do so much of this on social media. It's shocking to me the people that talk bad about it, that you're involved, or it's sad to me the parents that don't have help and they just really, parenting is hard. I don't care if you have one child or 10 children. It is hard. And if you have somebody that will walk beside you in that, it changes your life, it changes their life, and it changes the life of your child. It makes me sad that all parents and all grandparents aren't, but it's just like parenting. Some people weren't raised with that and they weren't taught that and they don't know how to do that. So I honestly, sometimes with my content, I am encouraging people to be that kind of parent. And I definitely get the ones that are like, I get called a narcissist grandparent. With social media, if you're not getting the bad comments, you're not really effective. So
Right. That's
I
true.
don't really care what people say, but I know that I'm bringing value to that space because I get so many messages from people. So, yeah.
Do you get a lot of messages about, like, they're saying it's a new trend where you're going radio silence with grandparents and things like that? Because I live next to one of the biggest retirement communities in the country, and I hear about it from both sides because, on one hand, the kids are saying, "Well, they're doing all of these crazy things, and I don't want my family around this."
Right.
But then the grandparents are like, "They're ungrateful," or, and I think it's like you always keep saying, a lack of communication.
Yeah.
What is your experience with that?
I had a really cool thing happen to me a couple weeks ago. I do get a lot of messages, and I get a lot of messages from grandparents asking advice, from parents asking advice. I've said to my husband, I think I need, now when I say Dear Abby, most people aren't even gonna know what that is because they're too young.
I know.
I know what that is. Pretty soon I'm gonna be a dear over the top grandma, is what all that is. But I was at church, and we go to a large church. And so I had never met this woman. I wouldn't know her at all. But she walked up to me, and she said, I watch you on social media. And she said, I want you to know that you're changing my life. She said, I wasn't a good mom. I never was a good mom. This story can make me cry. So hopefully I don't do that. She said, I wasn't a good mom, but I'm trying really hard to get back in my son's life. And I want to be a grandparent to my granddaughter that she deserves. And she takes out her phone and she pulls up the message from her son that she's texting him. And she said, my son is letting me pick up my granddaughter today, and I'm taking her to play pickleball. And I've not ever been able to take her to do anything. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how do you watch my stuff and it inspires you to try to heal with your son? And I do believe all the things that happen in your past can be healed if you both want it. And if you were a bad parent, you can still be a good parent to your adult kids. It just takes a lot of grace and a lot of forgiveness and a lot of communication, but you can get it if you want it. I
Right.
was not raised in a home. My mom and dad both struggled. My dad was alcoholic. My mom had a lot of mental illness and was married to an alcoholic. So she had a lot of struggles as well. And I never really believed, you'll hear people say duplication, like, that's how I
Right.
was raised. You are an adult and you can change anything in your life. And I admire people that want to change that. And that's exactly what this lady is doing. And it just filled me with so much love for her that she wanted to work on it. It's a God thing, I think, that people, yeah, I don't know.
It's really admirable when you decide to change, like,
Yeah,
especially I hear later in life it gets much harder. I don't know, you would have to tell me about that.
right. But I know even from the way I was raised, it's not easy to do it differently than because that's our normal, that's what my parents did. That was normal to me. My kids have never had to experience any of that. And so, yeah,
It's a beautiful thing making changes and
yes.
adapting. And let's see, I want to ask you a little bit about how are you rewriting the narrative of grandparenting? Because I see that you use that line a lot, and I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, I think, I can't say that word. Rewriting it to me just means bringing encouragement, bringing change to people, encouraging them, sharing some of the ways that I do the things that I do, and just honestly sharing my heart. Like, so much of the content that I put out is nothing more than what's on my heart that day. I do a couple reels a day, and it is honestly what is going on in my life. And so I don't know, I'm just doing it one day at a time and it's working really well. I think rewriting that story, though, for me personally, started 30 years ago when I started working in a home daycare where people were coming into my home, parents were coming into my home twice a day, frustrated, angry, sad. Some of them have never been married to the father of the child. There's lots of complications in people's lives, but you write your own story. Like, all of
Right.
us have the pen for our own life. And you get to decide what that is. I understand. I mean, there's mental illness, there's addiction, there's things that are very hard, but life is hard. You
That
choose
it
your
is.
hard and you
Yes.
do it. So,
I always like that term, we're all self-made, but only the successful like to admit it. But, it's all how you respond to things in life and react. And like one thing I have been going through as a parent is setting boundaries because it's something, before you're married, I'm the youngest of six. And my siblings are way older than me. So they did all of the like getting married and having kids way before I did. And so it was a real shift then. Like my parents were still working at the time because they had
mhm.
them when they were really young. And then they had me when they were older. So it it was like a big change for being the youngest where you're used to just, go make your brother a sandwich. Do this. And then you're married and you're like, no, I have to take care of my husband.
Right.
And I was just talking about this with my friend that I mentioned today about how your family dynamics change. And when you mentioned your son-in-law, my husband is also from another country. And I was joking today. I said you need to get a man from the old country because they're very patriotic and they grow you a garden too at the same time. Has that been something that was a different dynamic for your family? How did you gracefully go into that as a parent and a grandparent? Was that something you struggled with? Because I know my parents and family struggled with that on my end because it was different for them. And I get that,
I think for me personally, the struggle is they're coming so fast. Like,
right?
four of them and three different homes, three different families. It's very hard. One of my sons lives 5 hours away. and I don't get to do for him what I do for my daughter that's an hour and a half away. Her parents live there and they're very involved. They're very much like me. So God kind of covered that base for me. And that's another thing that comes to communication, though. Like, it breaks my son's heart, and I know it does because I'm able to go to my daughters weekly. I spent yesterday with 3 of my kids, and he's always the one that never gets to, and he's the one that, if he had his way, he would be with his mom all the time. He just loves spending time with me. So it's communication, and and there we've had rough patches, and I think that's part of it is you have some rough things, some hurt feelings, some things that were said that weren't probably the right words to say, but you talk about them and you deal with it and you learn from that and you use that. One of my daughter-in-laws was an only child, and that's a different dynamic. You're
Yeah.
with our in-laws, it just all of it comes with they were all raised so differently. And even, I recently saw somebody talking about, your own children, and you think, my children are so different. All 4 of them are very different. And I often think they were raised with the same family, so close together, the same house, the same dad, the same mom. But you know what? They weren't. Like, I was not the same mom to my 3rd and 4th child that were born in 4 years as I was to my first child that was the first one. And I think that that comes with parenting also with your older kids as they grow and get married. There's a little bit of a different dynamic, I believe, with my daughter versus with my sons. Or when you're thinking of daughter and daughter-in-laws, I am so blessed with daughter-in-laws that I have great relationships with, and that I'm very lucky. I don't know. I've been fearful of that a lot of my life, that I would end up with a in-law that wasn't
That was
on the same page.
stressful.
Yes. And fortunately, I haven't. But they all have different dynamics. And you have a family unit dynamic, like you and your
Right.
siblings, your parents, and then all of these in laws start coming in, and it does change. My son in law struggles. My boys, the 3 boys, they have always tormented their sister. Like, the sarcasm and the teasing and it's crazy. Well, my son-in-law doesn't really take to that very well. My daughter sets him straight. We all set him straight. But for him, it's harder. That stuff is harder for him because that's not how he was raised.
Right. That I was kind of talking about like the different family dynamics and then having someone from another country, like with different
Right.
cultural type things. But I agree with you that it has a lot to do with family dynamics. And I totally get the girl thing because I have 3 older brothers
Yeah.
and I
They
don't put up with anything.
Yeah, my daughter she was big soccer player. She was the goalie. Like, she has no fear. Like, she is beautiful, but she had no fear. And
Right.
they put her right away in that goal box because she did not. She has 3 brothers and she isn't scared of anybody or anything. And so I think it's been harder to help my own, like the in-law children come into the family. I think that I've had to be more thoughtful and even more communicative with them because I try to really think about what it's like for them
Right.
as, my daughter-in-laws or my son-in-law. My son-in-law is a harder one. He was raised very different in a different country, and but he also lost his mom at a young age. And so there's just many things in his life that he's had to deal with that none of our family has dealt with.
Right.
And so I think we all just, you show him a little more grace and you love him a little harder. And pretty soon he realizes, okay, they're not harming my wife. They're just harassing her. So yeah,
Yes. I know what that's like. I feel that.
yes.
And what are some ways that you have found as a parent in general that, we create the magic for our families? What are some tips that you have for creating magic for your families? And it doesn't have to be like, buying things or
Right.
etc.
I think I don't know why this entire talk to me, the word communicate always is like my first thought when you ask me a
Right.
question. But, I am the magic. I am the magic, and I'm the reason that they all still communicate. And because they don't live close, they don't work in similar jobs. They're all very different people, but I think that I have to think about this one. Some of the things that I do, I'm the one that spearheads like the family gatherings and the when we get together. And, we're doing our third baby shower very soon.
So
And
exciting.
so, yeah, it is very exciting. But I'm the one that usually opens that communication or starts the process. I think moms just bring the magic to a family
Right.
automatically. I know that not all families are that way, but mine was, yours is, and I think most people really strive for that. And I think just loving them all so much. I often think about my kids, and if you ask any of them, they think I'm their favorite or they're my favorite. That's all of them will tell you that, but no, like there's four. I'd like to tell them it's like a revolving award and you're going to get it how you earn it. We use a lot of humor in our family. That might be a little bit of, some of the I think some of the magic too comes from every family's going to have hard things. There are going to be hard situations. And I found with my parenting and now with my grandparenting, the greatest strides come through the hard things.
Right.
And so as we as we go through a hard thing, we talk about it, we accept each other for it, and we adjust and go on, and we still love them and be a family. It's not, he did this. No, I'm done. He's out. Like, it's just, and that's part of the mom magic too. I think I know with raising my kids and raising through the teen years, especially, the greatest things came from the hardest moments. And it's no different when you have adult kids or grandchildren. That still is very much how it is. And now with all these babies, I don't know. Now it's more, I think they
Right.
feel more competitive with each other.
Right.
So now my goal is make differences normal. Like, especially with babies and their milestones. And these babies are going to be four babies in 8 months. There's a big difference between a 5 month old and a 2 month old.
Oh yeah.
And I we can't do the pride thing. You like so I am constantly like encouraging the one that this child isn't doing this yet. And I'm like, they're only 3 months. Moms are always like ironing out putting out the fires, putting out the
Right.
fires. That's what comes to my mind is that never stops.
Yes, and I don't know about you, but I see all of the first-time moms, and I feel bad because I remember how stressful it was, like having a new baby. And then by the time I had my 4th kid, I'm like, "Yes, I get to lay in bed for 3 days, recovering." Like,
I say with
you know
the oldest one literally was in the doctor if a toenail looked odd.
Right,
He was in the doctor. My youngest, they could have a broken leg and lay until Monday because I know the ER isn't going to do anything until we go see the doctor on Monday. Like,
right.
I mean, everything changes with your time. And
Yes,
I do believe having grandchildren so close together and so quickly, there's some of that. I mean, am I happy? Oh, you better believe I am. And I love every single one of them. But it would have been really fun to like gradually get into this and spoil one a lot and then spoil the second a lot. But we aren't, that's not how we're doing life. And I think it just, we do everything just big and crazy in our family. And that's how this is. We love that way. Everything. And I'm very much a person. I will call things out. If there's a white elephant, we're talking about it. We're not going to leave that white elephant sitting. And I think that has helped my kids and my in-laws and now with babies. I think that's helped them that, they've learned how to get through hard things. It's been harder to get the in-laws on that page.
One thing I would like to ask you is in the show, I always ask for some words of encouragement, whatever you kind of have on your heart that you would like to say to parents or business owner parents, because that's what we do at our house. And I have really enjoyed hearing it. So what would you say?
I would say show yourself grace is probably the biggest thing. Ask me the question again because I want to.
What is something that you kind of like have on your heart that you like to communicate to people?
Okay, just love people. Just love them where they are with your kids, with your spouse. It's not always perfect, and we all stumble and we all fall short so often. And I often think with my children and my husband, sometimes my standards are just really high, but I don't expect them to make me be where I'm not at. And so I tend to show more grace when they're maybe not doing, making the right choices or whatever. And I think this with parenting with grandbabies is even more so that way. And just cheering people on and giving them love and just telling them that, things are hard. And especially with my kids and now them becoming parents, I want them to realize that they're doing a great job. Even if maybe they had a couple times that day that were rough and they didn't make the greatest choice or didn't do the thing that they wish, that's okay. It's okay. And you just pick it up and you go and you do and you just be the best that you can be and just strive to be more. And kindness is a big thing. We're so hard on ourselves and we're so hard on other people, and it doesn't get you anywhere. So comparison is the other hard word that whenever I feel angry about something or somebody's not doing what I think, it's because I'm comparing them to what either I think they should be doing or comparing them to someone else. And that's not fair to any of us. So I try really hard to value my life around or to live my life around love and kindness and just showing grace.
That's beautiful. And one
Yeah.
other question I like to ask is what are you reading right now, or do you have a favorite book that you would like to share with us?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm a Mel Robbins, I am over the top with Mel Robbins, and I read every book she has and I listen to every podcast. Right now, I'm reading baby books though. So I Love
Okay.
You Forever, I Like You for Always is my
That's so
favorite
cute.
baby book. I love reading. And I think that people, especially like myself, I had a long way to go to get where I want to be. And I've needed parenting books and, parenting podcasts. And I've always been one that just soaks up anything that I want to do. I find the resources and I just am like a sponge with them. So it would probably just be a Mel Robbins podcast and a children's book.
I love it. Well, I want to say thank you for joining me
Yes.
today. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. I had a great time, and I hope you did too.
Loved it. I've loved it. I've loved it.
And I will be putting links to Deb's social media in the comments, in the description. It just depends on when I'm allowed to.